Welcome to Facts TV News, where everything is true. Prime Minister Andrew Holness declaring the power of the church.
Praise the Lord. I am truly giving thanks. You know why? Because were it not for the grace of God, were it not that God looked upon us and said, not because of your works, not because of your status, not because of your wealth, but because you are my child, that you get a gift, a present, to continue to experience life. To get to see another year, 2021, having gone through the trials and challenges of 2020. God has spared our lives to see this day. I grew up in Spanish Town, right in the heart of Spanish Town. Some of you may know that area, Cumberland Road, just a little bit above the Grassyard Market. My grandmother attended the Baptist church just right there on near Young Street. And then my other grandmother, she attended the Seventh-day Adventist church. So I have quite a mixture of denominations in my religious background. But she would always say to me, and I always wondered why she did it, she said, whatever she was saying to me, she would always say, if life spare. How many of you heard your parents say that? It's not being said too much these days because we take it for granted. But she would always profess anything that she would say to me, if life spare, because she lived knowing that, yes, one day she will pass, but she lived knowing that her existence was not of her own will, but the grace of God. So we stand here today with our lives spared, and we must give God thanks, because I'm certain all of us here know someone who didn't make it into this year. I pause for a moment to pay my respect to those who have passed last year and early this year already, notable figures in our society. We give God thanks for their lives, for their contribution, and we pray eternal light and peace for their soul. Let me acknowledge and thank, I believe I can now say this, my good friend, now pardon me for saying this, but I want to know his stylist. Bishop's wife is saying she did it. I've been attending this event for a few years now. I try to make it a fixture in my calendar. The COVID pandemic threatened my attendance, but my office and my team thought that it was important that I present myself physically and not virtually. Before I attended, I made sure that we went through all the health protocols, because more than anything else, I have to be the one to exemplify the maintenance and the faithfulness in observing the protocols. And from what I'm seeing here, I would wish to report from this platform that the church has done an amazing job in ensuring that the protocols are observed. You know, I can't say that everything is perfect. I'm not the health professional. But from what I can observe. So, commendations to the church, this church, and the churches in Jamaica generally. They have been very good partners in handling the pandemic. Let me acknowledge formally Bishop the Honorable Conrad Pitkin, Custos Rotolorum for St. James, representing His Excellency the Most Honorable Sir Patrick Allen, and the co-chairman of the Heal the Family, Heal the Nation National Day of Prayer Committee. Let me acknowledge and welcome, I can do that, I can acknowledge and welcome Mark Golding, the new leader of the opposition. And we are joined by several members of the cabinet, an extraordinary turnout. I'm seeing the Manayard, Minister Audley Shaw. I'm seeing Minister of State Terry Long. I'm seeing our newly minted Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Senator Aubin Hill. You're looking around, Senator Hill, like it. Our Minister of Education, Favour Williams. Do I need to introduce this man here, the Minister of Local Government, Desmond McKenzie, and of course the Queen of Culture and Statues, and our Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports, Minister Grange. I know there are other persons here. I haven't seen Robert Miller, who I suspect should be here. I'm not certain if Mayor Leon Thomas is here. Mayor Thomas? Thank you for having me in your city, Mayor. And all the other members of the clergy who are here, all our important dignitaries. And Minister Floyd Green just joined us. Minister Green. So, I wanted to start my greetings to you this morning by sharing with you a Bible verse. And let me just assure Bishop Davis that I'm not here to preach the sermon. All right? So you will allow me to just share the verse. So, the heart of men. As I contemplated what to say to you this morning, I concluded on speaking about our crime situation. And I know that many of you here are concerned. Already we have recorded 13 murders in the year, 3 more than we did last year this time. And it is almost now becoming a pattern. As we head into the Christmas season, we notice that the daily murder rate increases. But not just that, the savagery of the acts also increase. And we would have seen this last Christmas, the Christmas before, and we have seen it Christmas past. It is a concern for the government. Indeed, myself and the Commissioner of Police, the Minister of National Security, we have had several conversations about the situation. And I reflected this morning on our plan to secure Jamaica. It is a comprehensive plan. We have invested in the last 4 years over $40 billion. That's more than has been invested in the last 15 years in our national security architecture. So we have put money into the hardware of national security. You are seeing all the new bikes. You are seeing all the new vehicles. They all have trackers in them. We are putting in place new software systems, new communication systems, cameras for our policemen, new patrol boats, new surveillance aircrafts, new helicopters. We have spent significantly on equipping our security forces, the hardware. And then we have invested heavily as well in the software, meaning our training, which we have expanded, particularly in the Jamaica Defense Force, with the National Service Corps. We have put in place new legislation to treat with communities that are violence prone, communities that are captured by gangs, the zones of special operations, and several other pieces of legislation to come that will improve the control of illegal firearms. We're considering amendments to the Bail Act. We are improving how the security forces are run and how they operate. And you will note that this government, though there are those in our society who would say, take off the gloves when you're dealing with the criminals. In our crime fighting strategy, this government will never sanction extrajudicial action by our security forces. And if we even smell it or dream it, that it is happening within the security force, we are going to act. And we have acted to ensure that we have a security force that uses force within the law and uses force without violence. A security force that respects the rights of the citizens, even the rights of the criminals. And you are seeing that in the low levels of police killings that you're having. We're still having a problem with how the citizen and the security forces relate to each other. You see the videos circulating where there is this aggression between the citizen and the police, and it makes it very difficult to do public order policing in particular. But over time, we hope that with improved training and improved communication, we will have better relations. Because make no mistake, the security forces is our last defense against the criminals. And the value of our security forces, you would see, is not just in fighting crime, but they have been very helpful, integral, and essential in managing the pandemic. There is no action that we could have taken as a government to manage the pandemic without the security forces front and center. And they have had to do this while manning SOEs, manning zones of special operations, doing their public order operations, and increasing their investigative capacity. Never before in the history of Jamaica has the police force brought so many cases before the courts. Because that is what policing is supposed to do. Our strategy has never been to empower any special squad or any special unit to go and fight crime in the conventional and traditional understanding of crime fighting. We fight crime with intelligence and investigation, and then we bring them before the co-equal arm of the state that dispenses justice, the courts. And they are the ones that will give the sentences that will act as deterrents. Our job is to bring them before the courts. And as citizens, I think you will agree, given our resources, given our constraints, that our police and military, our security apparatus, has done a fairly good job. So there's no question about this government's investment in the hardware. There is no question about this government's investment in the software. But now the government has to turn its attention to investing in the hardware. In the hardware. Because as I reflected on some of the heinous crimes that have happened in the last few weeks, family member killing family member, silly arguments at dance that has terribly injured our young people. There is no amount of policemen who could stop that. If we doubled or tripled the number of policemen that we have, we couldn't stop that family dispute. We couldn't stop the 3 persons murdered in a rural part of Clarendon, where no crime no happened there, so man just find them way there and wipe out. No amount of police is going to stop that. And we have to acknowledge it. And I want to read this Bible verse for you. Comes from Matthew chapter 15, verse 19. And if you read the entire chapter, you will get the context. But I'll just read verse 19 for you. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false witness, slander. These are what defile a person. Comes from our heart. Comes from within us as a people what we think. We can't escape that personal responsibility. What is happening to our people and their hearts that a family can't find it within themselves to settle their disputes without dismembering a member of their family? That a man pull a prank on your bike and you take up your gun and 6 people dead as a result of that. What is in your heart, man? So our plan to secure Jamaica is comprehensive. It deals with the hardware. It deals with the software. And now we are moving to deal with the hardware. And the hardware is not about the budget that we spend. Yes, we can make policies, but we need partners. And why I've decided to use this platform is that the best partner in all of this is, yes, you have said it, Jesus Christ and his institutions on earth, the church. We have a massive army of heart surgeons right here in the church. You have the medicine, which is the Bible and the gospel. I need you to reach beyond the walls of your church and the numbers of your congregation to those men, especially those young boys who believe that the only solution to conflict is violence. It is not now I have been preaching about violence. I am not a newcomer to this. Long before everybody was saying violence was an epidemic, I gave a presentation in Parliament, one of my first presentations as Prime Minister, second time around, speaking to the epidemic of violence that we have in this country. People are beginning to see it because they begin to understand the epidemiology of the coronavirus and how the response has had some success in controlling it. But we have to see violence as a disease that is infecting our people's heart. And we have to treat with it. There are some things that we will have to do. And I'm going to raise it here, as controversial as it is. When I was growing up in Spanish Town, I had the good fortune, some people would also say it's a misfortune, of having my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and my mother all around at the same time. There was no way I could have been a bad boy. And of course, they were loving, but they never spared the rod. Certainly, you know, my mother is a believer. My great-grandmother saw me as her little pet. And, you know, my grandmother maybe once or twice. So I know how deep this issue of corporal punishment runs in our social consciousness. There is a belief that you have to apply some amount of physical force in correcting a child. And if that physical force is applied within a context of love and understanding, which is the root and underpinning of the Bible, that is last resort. Because the core message of the Bible is forgiveness, it's love. But in our context, corporal punishment isn't being applied for that. It is not being applied for correction. Sometimes it is being applied for revenge. Sometimes it is being applied out of frustration. When you see a mother draw a machete and beat their child, there's no correction in that. What you are telling your child is that if anyone were to wrong you, if anything were to go wrong in your life and you have to take action, then you have to take action with a machete or a gun or a knife or some violent way. Why is it that other societies have long understood that using violence to correct their children does not endure, does not promote the emotional and social and economic intelligence of their population? Only the church can correct that. And so today, I put it on the altar of the church for consideration. We have an epidemic of violence, and we cannot at the same time promote the ultimate tool of propagation of violence. In our intimate partner relations, man and woman business, the pandemic is revealing, because people have to stay at home, the frustrations between intimate partners and how that leads to abuse. And then domestic issues, simple domestic issues, fight over land. You go hire hitman. No amount of policing go and stop that. That's the hardware. So the government has to be instrumental, deliberate and proactive in its message against violence. No institution of the state should use or promote violence. And that is why I have given clear policy direction to our security forces that we must use force without violence. Force and violence is not the same. Force is the strategic mobilization and deployment of all resources, manpower and otherwise, to take full control of a domain. That is force. Violence is the last thing that you want to use. And even then, if the state uses it, it must be under control. And if violence is used, it must be investigated, especially if it results in the loss of a life. And the same is true for our schools. We cannot have the correction of our children in public institutions which depend on violence. We cannot have that. We cannot countenance domestic and intimate partner relationships which are built on violence, and when you go to the police station, they tell you, well, it's man and woman business. It can't be man and woman business. It has an effect on our society. And it must be treated and dealt with. So, which is why I put in place the Violence Prevention Commission, chaired by noted Professor Maureen Sams-Vaughan. The commission is now fully provisioned with staffing. They have their terms of reference and they are operating. They will be coming back to the government after a comprehensive review. I have not asked them to study the problem of violence anew. The problem of violence in Jamaica is well studied. All facets, all areas, and many programs are already in existence. They're not coordinated. And their job is to bring all of them together and make recommendations to the government as to what laws we need to pass to modernize our legal system to properly treat with this issue of violence, to create a modern society that is gentler, loving, caring, but most importantly, a society that has a high level of socio-emotional intelligence. That means a set of people who can deal with their problems without raising their voice, that resort to reason before war, that prevents conflict before it happens, a people that seek peace genuinely. You know, there are many countries that are poorer than Jamaica and does not have Jamaica's murder rate. We have a violence epidemic. You are the people that have a significant role to play by virtue of your membership in the institution of God. And I call upon you today as you pray for the healing of the nation, to pray for peace in the hearts of men. The next phase of tackling the crime problem has to be the hardware phase. The hardware is taking effect. You are seeing that in greater surveillance, greater intelligence. The software, again, that is taking effect in how the force operates, the focus on investigation. You know, some of the software strategies have been taken away. We no longer have the SOEs, and it will be interesting to analyze what has been the effect of removing the capacity of the SOEs, because there's a great deal of hypocrisy. The same people who say do away with the SOEs, they are the same ones who are on the phone calling the commissioner to say, bring the police back into my area. The same ones. And I'm certain that if we had the SOEs in place, we would have ended the year much better. We still ended the year lower in terms of murders, so effectively we are flattening that murder curve. The next strategy now is how to bring it down, way down, to below 1,000. And that's where we want to go. And I'm sure that that is the objective of the opposition as well, as we have a consensus as to how we should go about treating with this serious crime and violence problem that we have. But as I said, I didn't come here to deliver the sermon. I just came here to share with you my heart and to deal with this problem of violence that we have in the society. I ask for your continued prayers and petition. May the Lord have mercy on us. God bless you.
So who do that?
Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and click the notification bell for daily updates.